Ask the Mayor, only on KTVZ.
Welcome back to KTVZ News at Sunrise. We're joined now, once again, for our exclusive monthly segment by Ben's Mayor, Melanie Kebler. How are you doing this morning?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Good.
Well, on to our first question about street sweepers. Why can't the Bend street sweepers work at night instead of daytime? The other day, this viewer was behind one and said a huge cloud of dust drifted down her vehicle.
Sure, yeah. So you are going to see the street sweepers out a little bit more in the springtime. That's when we do a lot of our spring cleanup to get the streets free of gravel and things that have happened over the winter, of course. Most of the time they're going to be out there in the early morning or in the daytime. One of the reasons is to be ahead of traffic, right, when most people are on the roads. But also because it's a bit safer than going out at night. At night you have visibility issues. You're asking operators to operate on nighttime hours, which also can be more expensive for the city. And really, so we try to get out there in the early morning. On some of our lower traffic streets, you'll see them during the day. And so just be aware they're going to be out there right now. We do want to make sure that we're responding to requests to make sure all the streets are cleaned up and ready to go for summer.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that response. We're going to jump right into question number 2. And this is a hot button issue. Many downtown are frustrated with the city's parking policies. What do you have to say to those that may work 8 hours and the parking lots only allow 6 hours of parking? The viewer adds that many people are getting tickets.
Yeah, so for folks who are working downtown, we understand they're going to be down there longer. We also want to make sure that we have parking available for everyone who's coming to visit businesses and spend money at those businesses. So we have a couple of those city lots downtown. In 2022, we actually increased the time in that Mirror Pond lot to be a little bit longer to make sure people could be downtown as long as they needed to shop. We do actually have a program for employees. So we would rather employees use the program where we can give them a permit. It can be as low as $20 or even $10 for folks who are low income to designate them as an employee and have them park in the places that are less trafficked so that they have a place to be all day, but then also visitors have a place to park. So always working on that parking policy downtown.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Awesome,
thank you.
And this next question is about the east side of Bend. What is your plan to support the east side of Bend after the recent loss of anchor businesses such as Big Lots, Costco, and the Phoenix?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad this came up. So as a person who grew up on the east side and I live down in southeast now, I know there's been a lot of change, and especially the Costco, which thankfully we still have our Costco in Bend that's thriving up north. But I'm actually really excited about the east side. There are things there that were never there when I was a kid, things like On Tap in that area with Sun River Brewing, even a little place like Bevel. We've got Cascade Lakes Brewing and that whole corner on Reed and 27th now that's developing more commercially. And what we're going to see is we have new neighborhoods come in on that area of town and more people living there. We're going to see more of that commercial activity. Another huge thing for that part of town is the library that's coming up. That's going to be a huge hub for people to gather in a new neighborhood as well. So we've also got Alpenglow, we've got Caldera. So we've got a lot of things going for us on the east side. Yeah, I do want to mention Costco's privately owned. They are leasing out that space. I can't tell them what to do with it. Folks have been emailing us with great ideas for what to do with that space. I would love if I could tell them to put an aquarium or a pickleball or a shelter or whatever there, but they'll decide what to do there, but hopefully they will find a tenant to come in there and keep that space alive.
Yeah, we had a Facebook post announcement when we found out that the space was up for lease, and the amount of people commenting their ideas was incredible. People
I know.
have a lot of ideas.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
It's exciting. We have another question for you. This one is about bus stops under the control of the Central Oregon City Council. Why do some bus stops not have a covert? Sorry, give us one second here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Why do some bus stops not have a covered seating area for people waiting for a bus? There is nowhere to cover from the harsh winter and hot summer heat.
Yeah, I see this as well driving around town, and there are some places where, for instance, in the Old Mill, you'll see that private development has made bus stops, and other places where it hasn't. We, a few years back, tried to modify some of our codes around right-of-way to make it easier to build things there for the bus stops. I would really like to see more of that happening. CET, which is the agency that runs our transit, is under the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, or COIC. I would encourage folks to give input to that board. They actually have a meeting coming up May 1st at 5:30 p.m. and either email or just let them know, you know, this is important, because I do think that we really need to start kind of leveling up our transit, and I know that they're working on that, and part of that is providing better shelters and benches for the bus stops.
Yeah,
Definitely. Thanks for that response.
And I'm going to have Matthew ask this question.
Now to our last question, which is about China Hat's homeless encampments. Also a big hot button issue. We should make clear that this is a national forest land and the city does not have jurisdiction, but this viewer did ask, where do you think all the homeless in China Hat will go, and how will the safe parking program is going to play into that?
Yeah, we've been really working hard on the safe parking program, just because we know that there is this coming up with China Hat, and as you mentioned, you know, this is a Forest Service decision. You know, we can give them some input, but ultimately they decide what they're doing. What I would like to see in the future in these type of situations is more like we are doing up in Juniper Ridge, where we're trying to make a temporary designated area and slowly transition folks out to get into a better situation. But for anyone who's leaving that area, we are working on, you know, we have current safe parking. We're looking at getting 33 more spots online, hopefully in the next little while, in the coming months. We also have Cleveland Commons, which is permanent supportive housing that opened, and the Old Mill Inn and Suites that opened recently. So those are actually places where folks can come from shelter into those. Old Mill Inn and Suites is more like low-income apartments. Permanent supportive housing is for folks with severe mental illness. So getting folks out of the shelter so we have availability for anyone who is coming in. So we are working really hard in the city on that, but also very concerned about the impacts of people being displaced.
Right. Well, thank you for that so much. That was our last question for you. And here at KTVZ News, we will also be continuing to monitor that situation.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, for sure, of course, always.
Waking up early.
Yeah.
And remember, folks, you can ask her a question anytime for our exclusive monthly segment. To submit your questions, click Ask the Mayor to the News tab on ktvz.com. We'll be right back with Sunrise Birthdays right after this.